And welcome back. Our guest tonight is Holland Vanden Nieuwenhof. He's no stranger to our viewers. He's an Oklahoma native. He served as a rifleman in the Marine Corps. He became an activist to expose government lies and cover-ups. You can find him on freemindreport.com and also at nobleeye.com. He's a researcher and producer for the film A Noble Lie. He joins us now. Welcome, Holland.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on.
Okay, Holland, for our new viewers, can you just take a few minutes and summarize A Noble Lie? What made you want to get involved, and what exactly the film's about?
A Noble Lie, Oklahoma City, 1995, is an expose of the Oklahoma City bombing in the light of new and suppressed evidence that exposes the official story to be a lie. We've won 8, actually been awarded or recognized in 8 film festivals, 8 or 9 thus far, and we've achieved a lot of success in reaching out to the mainstream and showing them that the evidence for the Oklahoma City bombing is very damning of the official story, and it doesn't quite make sense.
Excellent, excellent. Now, as far as Oklahoma City, we know it to be a false flag. There's been a lot of talk about false flags recently. Well, this isn't so much of a recent report, but we've heard MSNBC claiming that Obama needs a new, quote, Oklahoma City to reconnect with the American people. I'm an Oklahoman, much like you. I remember being in 3rd grade when the bombing took place. So how does that make you feel to hear things like Obama needs another Oklahoma City to reconnect with the American people?
Well, it's insightful to their point of view because they view these events, the tragedy associated with them, as political opportunities, not as tragedies for the nation. These are things to be taken advantage of and also perhaps instigated to fulfill a political agenda. President Bill Clinton himself told reporters on Air Force One that, they were asking him how he won re-election when he was suffering so much criticism. He told them Oklahoma City, right, because the bombing brought the country together.
Now, things with Oklahoma City, we hear a lot of speculation, a lot of the questions of the official story. If you could point out to people one particular smoking gun, or maybe you have a few smoking guns that you'd like to point out to people to, reassure them that this was a false flag, a self-inflicted wound, what would you tell people?
Well, there's varying levels of evidence. You can take eyewitness evidence for what it is, and although the eyewitness evidence almost 100% denies the official story, is contrary to what the government says actually happened, let's look at the science, because science cannot be denied. We know that the exterior truck bomb embodied in the Ryder truck was not the sole cause of destruction, despite what the government says. So some people may say, well, why don't you conduct a simulation and find out what happened? Well, we don't have to, because the Air Force did. As showcased in A Noble Lie, the first time that information's ever been given to the public in that manner. The Elgin Air Force Base, the Wright Armament Laboratory, they conducted a simulation of the Oklahoma City bombing. They actually took a test structure, a 3-story test structure that was very shabbily constructed. There was no roof, and they exploded a bomb like McVeigh and the FBI said it had been built. It had almost no effect on their test structure. So they actually planted bombs inside their test structure to test the hypothesis of explosives inside the building. And their conclusion of the Wright Armament Laboratory out of Elgin Air Force Base was that there were bombs inside the Murrah building that were responsible for the majority of the damage. So you have one branch of government saying one thing, but yet the Justice Department, the FBI, saying another.
Now, you touched on something very interesting. You talked about how Bill Clinton got reelected, how he said himself that Oklahoma City helped him a great deal. Would you put it past the Obama administration, a group that's run schemes such as Fast and Furious to run guns into Mexico? Would you put it past the Obama administration to pull off a false flag of this magnitude, the Oklahoma City?
I would not put it past any administration under this government, because these false flag attacks since Gulf of Tonkin and several since, no one has ever been held accountable. No one's ever been held responsible for their crimes, for their treason against their country in order to simulate an attack, a self-inflicted wound, usually a very slight one, to fulfill a political agenda or a foreign policy agenda. No one has ever been held accountable, so why would they stop? Logic dictates that they would continue and that these attacks would only intensify.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Now, we see, lone gunmen such as Timothy McVeigh, they're supposed lone gunmen, even though he had connections to LOM City. We see guys like the underwear bomber, even though we have a witness, Kurt Haskell, who's been on the show, who said he was escorted onto the plane. This Batman Joker clown, even though people say he was let into the theater and various reports say that smoke bombs were thrown through different locations from the theater, which means he'd have at least one accomplice. Why do you think they love this lone gunman scenario so much?
Because it fulfills their agenda. Their agenda is to disarm the American people. Let there be no doubt about that. Gun control was dead in this country because Fast and Furious had broken into the blogosphere and then into the public. People knew that the largest gun smuggler in recent history, if not all of American history, was the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And they were shipping guns to Mexico to cause violence to justify gun control in this country. That has come out in their own memos where they're saying the gun violence in Mexico, they leave out the part where they're causing it, where they say the gun violence in Mexico can be used to put more restrictions on long gun purchases in this country. That, by definition, is a false flag attack, but it busted wide open once a couple cops got killed, once a couple American cops got killed. It busted wide open. Although they're trying to play damage control, gun control itself was dead. But now suddenly, out of the ashes of Fast and Furious comes this new gun control agenda with momentum because of these lone shooter scenarios that play in the hands of the agenda that American citizens, individuals, cannot be trusted with firearms.
Now, we just had an article on the screen. If we can throw that back up, guys. This was from The Telegraph. Is Obama. It talked about the Fast and Furious. Yeah, that's the one right there. Headline: Fast and Furious scandal turning into President Obama's Watergate. Would you agree with an assessment like that, Pollen?
No, it could be, because for one, it was far worse than Watergate. Watergate was a minor crime. I mean, Nixon should have paid for that, and he did. But it was a relatively minor political crime, especially given in light of recent political events over the past decade or so. And it wasn't Obama's Watergate because it did not bring his presidency down.
That's a very interesting point. Very interesting point. Obama's still in power, even though we have Fast and Furious going on, still ongoing. Eric Holder saying, I don't want to testify, I don't want to give these documents. And it's become a really ridiculous thing. Obama, I was talking to a friend of mine, he was talking about it's hard for him to latch on to Obama, even though he's an Obama supporter, because there's so many different things that Obama promotes that kind of distract from the last thing. Because first we had Trayvon Martin, and when I say these things, I'm not downplaying. I mean, the Trayvon Martin tragedy was definitely a tragedy, but you go from Trayvon Martin to SEAL Team 6, to did they kill bin Laden, did they not kill bin Laden? And it just keeps going on, and then he's out there promoting the new Batman massacre, like you said, was just something else to take our guns. And even recently, the Obama administration says they want to come after people for using controlled substances, for smoking pot. I mean, any excuse they can to come after your guns, they're coming after your guns, Holland.
Exactly, and there's a lot of people who are frustrated with Obama because his whole presidency is PR. He has done nothing for the people, nothing for those people he promised he would do things for once he became president. People are seeing through that. They're seeing through the PR. That's why he may need some kind of traumatic event to absolve people of their critical thinking skills. So they're not thinking about the facts. They're appealing to emotion, because emotion can be controlled. Irrational people can be controlled, not rational, critical thinking people. So something may have to happen to shock us out of our good wits, perhaps, and support this presidency.
Yeah, you made a very good point there. People will buy into this shock and awe. So let's say if he does pull off a false flag attack, now he'll have the American people behind him. Because we just saw today that certain provisions of the NDAA that were reversed were actually, I guess you call it re-reversed. They said that the homeland battlefield scenario, which basically claims that the United States, and well, it says the whole world, but the United States in particular is a battlefield, which would grant Obama certain, or whatever president, certain, I guess you'd call them wartime powers to act as they please. So what do you think about that, Holland?
Well, I think it's ludicrous and an illustration of the age in which we live, which is robbed of irony. That a former president, a former constitutional scholar who is now president, his administration is now arguing that the court's ban on NDAA is unconstitutional because it restricts his powers as commander-in-chief in wartime. He's in fact arguing that NDAA, the power for the government to detain American citizens at will without recourse to the justice system for the duration of a decades-long war, that this is constitutional. That is his argument. And the fact that the mainstream media is accepting this argument without laughing in the administration's face tells you that they've lost total touch with reality also.
And we've heard Obama say that he doesn't need to consult the constitutional issue, something that Ron Paul commented on. And we've even seen the FBI director, Mueller, who said that he doesn't like certain provisions of the NDAA because it keeps the FBI from doing their job. Because if these guys are locked up in some hole in Gitmo, they can't extract information from them, to solve their crime. So it's just an ongoing problem.
Well, that's probably just a turf war right there. But we know that NDAA, I mean, President Obama signed that on New Year's Eve, which tells you that he did not want a lot of press on that because most media, they're out covering New Year's Eve celebrations. They're not covering the fact that President Obama is signing a law to be executed in this nation on New Year's Eve. He was trying to hide it. And now he's arguing in the court before the Supreme Court that they must have this power to detain and hold American citizens at will for suspicion of associating with, quote unquote, terrorist sources. And that can be construed to mean anything. It's very dangerous. I mean, like Ron Paul, the fact that Ron Paul was detained on the airport tarmac right after the political convention and accused of being a terrorist threat, that was not mere incompetence. I know the TSA is composed of a lot of dim bulbs, but they're not that dumb. That was intimidation. That was political intimidation. That was the federal police of this nation. Well, they're not even actually police, the federal security guards
officials
being used as a political intimidation tool. That's not supposed to happen in this country. So what's going to happen in 2016 when an independent presidential candidate runs? I mean, it's scary.
And we've seen TSA, we've all known that they were going to leave the airports eventually, and they are out on the streets. They're even showing up at political events, Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney events. But if I could switch gears here for a second, we have an article, INFOWARS.com headline, Panetta, U.S. will attack Iran if it decides to build nuke. This came out last week. I'll read the article to you. Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta said Tuesday of last week that if Iran decides to build a nuclear weapon, the United States will take military action. And the article goes on to say that the U.S. has no evidence. It says Israel has no evidence that Iran is trying to build a nuclear weapon. They're just saying that they have whatever components. We see a potential Bush yellow cake situation where they're just saying it's over there, so we have all the right to rush in.
Well, they've laid the forms for war. They just have to pour in the concrete. It's all there. They're not going to rip down the forms, and they have to take Iran. Iran can shut down the Straits of Hormuz at will, and it renders the expenditure of lives and resources and time in securing the oil fields of Iraq useless unless at some point we secure total security for the Persian Gulf at the Straits of Hormuz. That means removing the current antagonistic regime of Iran. That's why we're going after Syria right now. They're the lone remaining ally in the Middle East of Iran. So this is all a geopolitical chess game. And this latest turmoil in the Middle East over the innocence of Muslims video, I can only interpret in that lens.
Now, you made a very interesting point. That actually brings me to my next article. We have a new article by Kurt Nimmo. Neocons engineering October surprise, and that's just what you talked about, this goofy Muslim movie that's out there inciting rage, so to speak. Paul Joseph Watson was on our radio show this morning. He made a very interesting point. He said he saw the video, at least what's posted online, and he said somebody getting angry about this new Muslim video is like a Christian getting mad at a Monty Python video. So, I mean, what do you think about this new Muslim video?
Well, I viewed the video in the lens of a filmmaker myself. So I looked at it as a product produced by a filmmaker. And about 2 minutes in, I was wondering if it was satire or comedy, but it wasn't funny. And then I realized they were being serious. And then I realized, well, actually, no, they're not being serious. This is not a serious product that anyone would ever try to sell to anyone. This was not made to derive a profit, especially for the shadowy investors that the mainstream media can't seem to pin down. This was not designed to provide entertainment. It is mere provocation and insult. That's its only purpose. And in that case, it's successful. But like you said, it is ridiculous. It is comically bad, but it's not funny. It's insulting. I was embarrassed for the filmmakers. Really? No one could take it seriously, and I can only imagine that it was a deliberate, it's cover for what's going on overseas.
You made a very good point. I like what you said talking about being a filmmaker. When you see films such as Coney 2012, this is a little off topic, but when you see films like Coney 2012, what do you think about things like that? Is Is that propaganda? What is that? What is your view on the Coney 2012?
Well, I admired the speed at which the message was spread, which is why I looked into it, because that's what we're all trying to do, to compose a message about something that right that needs to be wrong, and giving it to the world and watching it explode. That's what we all want to do. So I looked at Coney in 2012, and I realized that it was fulfilling a foreign policy objective in Congo and Uganda over this mysterious Coney who hasn't been seen in 6 years. It's a non-issue. In fact, it's been proven that the filmmakers collaborated with the regimes in Africa and throwing some people in their movie in jail to be tortured. And of course, the subsequent meltdown of the filmmaker was not expected by those who put it out. So you can see that even though they they engage in mimetic engineering, creating these memes that are going to influence behavior through YouTube videos, through music videos, through TV and film. They insert these viruses into the human thinking to try to alter our behavior. And Coney 2012 is part of that. And it imploded. It blew up in their face because the filmmaker, something went really bad there. So we can see that they're trying. They're not very good. And for example, this Innocence of Muslims video is atrocious. It's horrible. It's a joke. And if that was an earnest effort, I'm embarrassed for the controllers.
Yeah, people comparing it to a South Park, Team America kind of movie.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to see the whole thing, but the clips I saw were pretty bad. So as far as, you being an expert on false flags, having done this film, do you see any big risk, any, new target for the U.S., anything that we may want to look out for? Because we see that they're rolling out to bus stations and going out to sports venues. Do you foresee any big event?
Well, obviously, like I said before, the crosshairs are on Iran. Syria is merely in the way. Perhaps they'll have to wait to take care of Syria before they go after Iran. But when Syria falls, Iran is definitely next. And that is going to be bad because it's going to be perhaps a joint strike between the U.S. and Israel. Iran's going to respond in kind. They're going to respond by shutting down the Straits of Hormuz, which they can at will. That means oil prices go through the roof. Perhaps leading to an economic collapse in this country or a food supply collapse. That's very possible if food is so expensive to transport that it's not worth transporting it because no one can make any money. And of course, if the government tries to step in to move food, that's going to be a disaster. It's not going to work. So I think if we go into Iran, we're really going to see, at the very least, a major historic economic downturn. And also, in terms of retribution, Iran is going to strike back. If we attack their country, they're going to activate cells in this country that have been planted here for years. And if not that, the CIA will activate their own cells and create a wave of terror across this country, small time, attacking shopping malls, attacking small targets, that will lead to a nationwide rule of martial law, which people will welcome because there will be small things getting blown up left and right. If we go into Iran, there will be terrorism in this country. There will be a concrete police state. I can guarantee that.
Yes, you make an excellent point talking about the police state. We all know there are FEMA camps. We've seen it on the Jesse Ventura show, Conspiracy Theory. Alex and Jesse, they go out and they meet the people who run these FEMA camps, and they say, or whatever name they gave them, the housing units or whatever they call them, and they say, oh, the kids, they're very happy here, and they say, why do we have barbed wire fences and bales of razor wire out here? So, I mean, you make a very good point. People need to be prepared. They need to, I'm not saying go out and buy a bunch of guns, but go get your food and your water. Be prepared in case a false flag attack happens. What do you make any preparations when you're on your radio show? And if anybody calls in to ask you about preparation, do you make any particular type of preparations?
Well, I mean, I'm not an economics expert, so I stock up on a little metal, but not too much, simply because it's not my thing. Frankly, I stock up on firearms. Really? Because not just for use, but for barter and trading. If something really does go down, guns are literally going to be worth their weight in gold. You can sell them as gold, and you can actually use them if you need to. You can't throw your gold pieces at someone. That's and also food. That's the big thing. Food. I don't want to be having to line up at the local Walmart for my food tickets for the food truck or however they're going to try to rectify the food supply. I'd rather rely upon my own resources, not have to sign up for something like that, and to be able to feed myself and my family.
Now, talking about the government getting ready for martial law, they've gone out and bought over 1 billion bullets now between various agencies. They're saying they're for target practice, and now they're even talking about they have sniper bullets, supposedly blanks, that that I guess for target practice. Well, you target practice to eventually shoot something, you know. So what are they gearing up for? Do you see any reason or need for them to have all these stockpiles of bullets and new armored vehicles?
I do not. Logic dictates that society does not need that to solve crime or even terrorism. Good investigation, proper national security would solve the terrorism problem. The national defense problem could be solved by not intervening in wars overseas. The only use of these armored vehicles, I mean, those sniper rounds are no joke. That's what the snipers are using overseas. Sierra Match King hollow points. Those are real. Those are the real deal. 168 grain. Those are used for killing people. They're not blanks. So what we're seeing is the federal law enforcement agencies gearing up for what? I mean, what is going to happen? What are they foreseeing? What are they planning for?
They know something we don't.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Our guest is Holland van den Nieuwenhof. Can you give us your sites?
Well, of course, you can check out the movie A Noble Lie at the INFOWARS shop. Check it out there. Make your purchase. You can check out the trailer and contact us about the movie at anobleye.com. And I also have my own radio show, Free Mind Report, at freemindreport.com. It's heard in Austin on 90.1 Monday evenings, 6 to 8 p.m.
Okay. All right. And the film is A Noble Lie. I've seen it myself. I very much enjoyed it. And I want to thank you, Holland, for your time. And please stop by if you have any new developments. How's the film doing?
It's doing very well. Actually, we just got word that we got accepted to 2 more film festivals. I don't even know the names. It's doing very well. And we're actually working on a current project right now called State of Mind, the Psychology of Control, which is a treatment of mind control, examination of the concept of mind control on societal and individual level.
All right. Our guest is Holland van den Nieuwenhof, and we definitely thank you for your time, Holland.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, another excellent breakdown of the coming police state. And like he said, get ready. They could roll out martial law at any moment. They could roll out a new false flag at any moment, so just be prepared for that. The film, A Noble Lie. You can get your copy of A Noble Lie at the INFOWARS shop. You'll see it right there for $19.95. A great film to show your family and friends, people who are skeptical of false flag situations we see in this film. That well, the official story says that Timothy McVeigh never stepped foot inside the Murrah building, but even though there were bombs found inside the Murrah building, so if he never went in there, how did those bombs get there? And that's not speculation. You can see on the film the then governor of Oklahoma, Frank Keating, saying that there were bombs found inside the building. So a great film. Another great product from INFOWARS.com. And also, if you like this film, if you like our guests, support our broadcast by subscribing to PrisonPlanet.tv. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, we definitely appreciate your views, but subscribe to our PrisonPlanet.tv. It really supports our broadcast because people say, hey, you guys should get this guy on, you should get that guy on, you guys should do this, you should do that. And we want to do that stuff. We just need support from our viewers to help us do those things because we don't have a big corporate sugar daddy leaving money on the dresser at night for us. We're viewer supported by people like you. So support our broadcast. And that's it for the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm your host, Jakari Jackson, and Lord willing, we'll be right back tomorrow night with another slew of great reports. So this is Jakari Jackson for the INFOWARS Nightly News. You have a good night.
Visit INFOWARS.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.